Hi, and welcome to episode 6 of our Sabbat series. Yay! We're almost to the end of the Sabbat series, which is kind of sad, but we will be able to update the episodes. And if we have any other information that we want to add, then we can add them as we go. But this is like a one and done series, just so that you guys can come back and reference it every year. If you're like, oh, I don't know what to do for Mabon, I don't know what to do for Lamas, here they are. So, this is our favorite Sabbath, I guess. Oh, I didn't even introduce myself. I'm Rin Graves. River is not here. Um, which is so sad because this is our favorite Sabbath, but we wanted to get this one out as fast as we could so that you guys can use this information for the season. And we kind of decided that we should get it out as soon as possible. And even if that meant, me doing it by myself while River heals. So here we are. But this is our favorite Sabbath, and I threw together some pretty interesting stuff, and I'm really excited to share it with you. So we're talking about Samhain, and it's spelled Samhain. So um, you don't get too confused about spelling and Samhain and pronunciation and all of that. So let me just go ahead and get started. So, Samhain is an ancient festival that originated from the Celtic people, primarily in what is now Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man. The word Samhain itself comes from the Old Irish salmon, like Samain, and this means, again, that could be pronounced wrong. I'm no good at pronunciation, but this means the summer's end, and it marks the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the darker half of the year. It was deeply connected to the agricultural cycle and the changing seasons and the belief of the supernatural. So I'm going to be a little bit more detailed, and I want to kind of describe the history of Samhain. So, with its ancient Celtic roots, which was around 2000 BCE, Samhain is believed to have been celebrated as far back as the Neolithic era, with many of its traditions emerging from the Bronze Age. The Celts who lived across much of Europe, but especially in the British Isles, divided the year into two main halves: the light, which is spring and summer, and the dark, which is fall and winter. I love fall and winter. And so Samhain, along with Imbolc, Beltane, and Lammas, was one of the four major fire festivals celebrated to honor the shifts of the year. You know, we love a good fire festival. So, the historical elements of Samhain are like the agricultural importance, which this is where Samhain was primarily a harvest festival. And so, this is like the end of the summer's growing season, the time to bring livestock in from the pasture and for the winter months. And the crop has been harvested in late September and early October. And this is where it's being stored. Like they are now getting them all harvested to be stored. And so any remaining fields that are left kind of die off and fallow. So, cattle and other livestock that couldn't be fed during the winter are slaughtered, and the meat is preserved for the long, cold months ahead. So, this was the time of abundance, but also preparation for winter, like the scarcity of winter. And Samhain was the last great feast before the hardest part of the year. So it's like also seen as this liminal time and spirit activity. So Samhain was considered a liminal time when the boundaries between worlds of the living and the other world, which is maybe like the land of the dead and spirits, are blurred. The Celts believed that during this time period, spirits, both benevolent and malevolent, could cross into the physical world. Some of these spirits were the souls of the dead, maybe who were honored, while some were also mischievous of dangerous entities, such as the AOC, which is a fairy folk, or other supernatural creatures. And so Samhain was a time to honor ancestors and those who have passed away, And it is believed that they believed that the souls of the dead would return to visit their homes, and people would leave offerings of food and drink to appease them. Families might even set places at the table for their past loved ones. And I think we've talked about Samhain a lot, and I know that a lot of this is just repetitory if you listen to our main episodes. But again, this is just something for you to come back and reference. If you need any ideas, anything else, or be like, oh, what again? What is Samhain again? So I know that this is kind of repetitory. We've been saying this year after year. This is our favorite season. Um, so I don't want to throw you guys off if any of this is repetitory and you're like, you already said that. So, fire rituals are a really big part of Samhain. They play a central role in Samhain traditions and celebrations. So, you have large communal bonfires that are lit on hilltops and maybe hearth fires in homes, and all of that. And so, you have your hearth fires in homes that were extinguished and then relit from the sacred communal flame. So the fire symbolized both the end of the old year and the beginning of the new, offering protection through the cold and dark months ahead. The smoke and flames were believed to have a protective and cleansing property that drives away evil spirits and harmful entities. Samhain is also a good time for maybe prophecy and divination. They believe that the thinning of the veil between worlds allowed for easier communication with the supernatural, making it an ideal time to seek guidance from the gods, spirits, or ancestors. Druids and other seers would practice various methods of divination, including fire scrying, casting lots, and examining the remains of sacrifices, which are both animal and, in some rare cases, humans for omens. And the human cases are more towards when all of this was still going on and very prevalent. But again, they didn't really want to use humans, they used more animals. And so with this, with the fire scrying, people would gaze into the fire of the communal fire and into water to seek visions of the future. Because I mean, think about the times if you are having to put away, like harvest all of your crops and put away all of your livestock and slaughter the ones that probably won't make it, kind of understand, they want to see if their future is good. They want to see how it's going to turn out, if they're going to make it through the winter and all of that. So fire scrying really became something, important during this time. And then apples were often used as divination games. So, for example, young women would peel an apple in one long strip and throw it over their shoulder to reveal an initial of their future husband. So that one's kind of cutesy, fun if you want to do that during this time. I mean, I think it's cool. And then you also have the other world in mythology. So Samhain has strong connections to the Celtic underworld, a mystical realm that is inhabited by gods, spirits, and the souls of the dead. In Irish mythology, some significant events occurred during Samhain, highlighting the spiritual power. So one well-known example in the story of Tan Bao Clenage which is the cattle raid of Cooley, and again, I know I butchered that. I'm so sorry. Is a great Irish epic that begins with a conflict that erupts during Samhain. And then you also have the Samhain night. I'm not going to try to pronounce the real pronunciation. So during this liminal time, gods and heroes often um, transverse the veil between worlds. And so the famous Celtic god, and we've talked about this one, the Dad god, was known to mate with the Morrigan, a goddess of battle and fate on the Samhain night, ensuring protection for the people during the winter months. And then, with the widespread of Christianity in Ireland and the other Celtic regions, Samhain practices were slowly absorbed into the Christian traditions. By the 9th century, the Catholic Church established All Saints' Day on November 1st to honor all saints and martyrs, which was followed by All Souls Day on November 2nd to honor the dead. The evening before October 31st became known as All Hallows Eve, which later evolved into Halloween. So while the church sought to reframe the festival with Christian themes, many of Samhain's core practices, such as honoring the dead and lighting bonfires, perished. So Samhain survived in folk practices in Ireland, Scotland, and parts of Britain throughout the medieval and early modern times or time periods. So even as Christianity kind of spread, many Samhain traditions were kept alive in the form of folk customs, such as mumming, which is where people dressed in costumes, visited homes and performed in exchange for food, which bears resemblance to the, modern trick-or-treating. And in the 20th century, with the rise of the neo-paganism and the Wiccan movement, Samhain was revived as one of the key Sabbats on the Wiccan wheel of the year. And so modern day Wiccans and other pagan groups celebrate Samhain as a spiritual time for honoring the dead, reflecting on the cycles of life and death, and performing rituals to connect them with the unseen world. Like Samhain has evolved from like the ancient Celtic festival steeped in agricultural rites, ancestor worship, and beliefs in the supernatural into a more nowadays like modern celebration that blends historical practices with contemporary spiritual meaning. And so its history is rich with myth, lore, and seasonal significance, offering modern witches and pagans a time to connect with nature, honor the dead, and reflect the kind of cycle that nature of life and death has to bring. And so I really love, well, I don't love the history just because of everything, but I love what it's become today, where we can all be open and celebrate any way that we kind of want and just kind of have that feeling. I don't know. It's like a feeling to me. I feel very happy and excited when this time comes around, which is probably not how they were feeling back then, because this is a dreading time. This is where they have to harvest all their food and butcher the animals they can't keep. And just like this is the last feast before they probably starve a little bit for the winter. So I don't know. I think it's a little bit different, but I love it now. Like I love the feeling and I love knowing the history and where it came from and all of that. So, speaking a little bit about food, this is a really big time this year, and I am a kitchen witch, so I would love to talk a little bit about the food. So, since Samhain does mark the end of the harvest, and so the traditional foods of the season are pretty good. Like I love food. So these foods typically kind of reflect the harvest bounty with an emphasis. It's a lot on root vegetables. And so that's like maybe apples and grains, root vegetables, and maybe preserved meats as well. So many of the foods that are connected to ancient customs kind of are used for offerings for spirits and ancient ancestor worship. But here's a little bit of a breakdown on what types of foods and how you can enjoy them during this time. So, you have apples. Apples is a big one. So, apples are seen as as sacred in Celtic tradition and are abundant in the fall, making them a popular Samhain food. Apples are often used in divination practices, and they are linked to the other world and kind of symbolize life, immortality, and the connection that they have to the spirit world. Now, you can enjoy them in so many ways. You can make apple pie, apple cider, caramel apples, apple cake. You can also include apple slices in a part of your offerings to your ancestors. You can put it on your altar, and all of that. I will say, I went to a pumpkin patch. Wow. We're talking about apples. I went to an apple orchard with my husband maybe a week and a half ago or so, and we got so many apples, and I have been baking and making so many things. I made apple butter. My mouth is watering. I made apple butter. I've made now this doesn't go with I guess it goes with the apples, but I didn't make it from the apples. I made a homemade caramel to go with the apples. or caramel, however you want to say it. And then I've made little tiny apple I don't want to say cakes, like apple pies, but like a apple pastry type of thing. And again, all my stuff is gluten free, so some of it's kind of on and off with like the crusts and everything. But I have made a lot, and I finished a batch of apple cider last night. I'm gonna try it today because it needed to cool. I'm so excited because I found a recipe for apple cider. It's like, yeah, let me try it. And then underneath it was like, and you can add whatever wine or anything to it if you want to do that for like a party. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is such a good idea. It did take a lot of apples for the small amount that I did get, but I still think it's pretty decent. But apples is really good, and you can do so many things with apples. And with the leftover apple kind of mush from the apple cider, I'm gonna make apple sauce. So you can just do so much stuff, and you don't have to waste any of it. You can put your apple cores in your compost. You can, there's so many things that you can do, and there you don't have to have so much waste. And I feel like in back in the day, oh, anything that they didn't use, like apple cores wise or any types of food wise, they probably gave it to their animals to feed them as well. So the next thing is pumpkin and squash. So while pumpkins themselves are a kind of new world food, similar winter squash and gourds were in Celtic regions. So pumpkins are strongly associated with Halloween and Samhain, like with a carved pumpkin and kind of evolving from the ancient Celtic traditions for carving the turnips to ward off the malevolent spirits. We do pumpkins now, but we can enjoy pumpkins by doing pumpkin soup. We can do roasted squash. We could do pumpkin bread, pumpkin pie, anything pumpkin, really. We have pumpkin themed drinks nowadays. But one of my favorite dishes is like a stew, but you cook it in a cooking pumpkin. I'm gonna do that hopefully sometime this season. I'm super excited about that one. But you used hollowed out pumpkins or gourds for lanterns to guide spirits or ward off unwanted ones. So I think that's pretty cool too. I do kind of want to get a gourd to kind of carve. That would be so cool. I did get a pumpkin. I haven't carved it yet, maybe later today. Um, but I would love to do a gourd as well. I've never carved a gourd. Um, so maybe this year will be the year. And then, like I was saying, root vegetables. So that's like turnips and potatoes and carrots. These were very important during Samhain because they were part of the harvest and could be stored for long winter months. So in ancient times, large turnips were, like I said, carved, but I really want to emphasize it because they were used for protection from spirits, like the turnip lanterns. I just think it's so cool. Maybe I'll make one of those too. And then you can enjoy your root vegetables by making stews, mashed potatoes. There's a Irish dish made from potatoes mixed with kale or cabbage, and it's a colcannon. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And sometimes it's served with onions or leeks, and that sounds so delicious. It just sounds so like warm and cozy. I don't know. I love food and I love cooking, so thinking of using any of these types of um what do you call like ingredients in a dish makes me sound like I'm just so excited. And then one of the best parts is the meat of the dishes. So traditionally livestock was slaughtered around this time to provide meat for the winter. So meat was preserved through salting, smoking, or drying. So this is perfect for pork, lamb, beef, and these were also common um and often prepared for stews or roasts. So, I mean, all of that just makes my mouth water. I'm so excited about this season to be able to cook some really nice hearty foods. And so you can enjoy it by making a hearty stew like Irish lamb stew, beef stew. Ooh, beef stew sounds so good with root vegetables and maybe a roasted pork or sausages can be served as part of the feast. Everything just sounds so delicious. And then you don't want to forget about the grains and breads. So this is grains harvested in late summer and early autumn were a staple in Samhain feasts. So Barmbrack is a traditional Irish fruit cake made with raisins and sultans, and it was used in divination as well. So charms were baked into the bread, and whatever some like whenever someone found it in their slice, it kind of predicted their future. So like a ring meant marriage, a coin meant prosperity. But again, I'm a germaphobe. So thinking about putting a coin in your bread or a fruit cake or something like that, and then you finding it kind of gives me a little bit of a, "Ooh, was it sanitary?" That's just me though. So, how to enjoy? You can make this fruit bread, and then you can also make oat cakes. You can make the bannocks, which is a type of traditional Scottish bread. You can make cornbread. You can make sourdough. I know sourdough is probably not as traditional, but why not? It's so delicious, and it would be perfect for a big feast like this, especially if you have like stews and meats and everything just sounds so delicious. And so, um, including these in a feast or anything like that is seen as an offering to the dead and a commonplace too. Nuts are also seen as something that's sacred during this time, and they were used in divination practices. And so there's a lot of customs that include roasting nuts on the hearth and using them to predict the future of relationships or fertility. So you can also enjoy these by roasting nuts as a snack. You can do chestnuts roasted over an open fire or incorporating nuts into baked goods like cakes and breads. Dairy products are also very important. So dairy was crucial for this time for the Samhain diet, if you want to call it that, because livestock were typically brought in from the pastures for the winter. So fresh dairy products like cheese and butter were common during these feasts. I love making homemade butter. I just made some the other day and I've already used it all. And so with this, how you can enjoy it, it's like a cheese platter. I love a good cheese platter. Buttered bread, creamy dishes like mashed potatoes, anything like that. A couple more things for the food. I had a lot for the food because I love food. And you can make soul cakes. So these were small round cakes given out during Samhain and during like maybe later during like the Christian era's All Soul Days. So these cakes were made as offerings for the dead and given out to the poor as part of tradition called souling, where people would kind of pray for the souls of the dead in exchange for food. So you can look up a recipe, like any type of recipe for a soul cake, and they're often flavored with spices like cinnamon or nutmeg or dotted with raisins or anything like that. And it can be very versatile, and they can be part of the offerings to honor the spirits. Last but not least, some beverages. So mulled wine. Oh, I'm so excited for mulled wine and or cider. And I love the hard cider or non-alcoholic cider. I love a good cider. I found one when my husband and I went to the apple orchard and it's only made in that region. And so I'm kind of bummed because I can't just go to a bar and order this like cider. I'm so sad. It's the best cider I've ever had. Um, but we're gonna probably make our way up there soon. It's like 2 hours away from us, so it's a little bit long drive for just a cider. But yeah, so you can make cider and it's not so hard to make cider. I just threw mine in my crock pot and just let it cook all day, mixed it kind of periodically. It was while I'm home on the weekend, so not while I'm at work where I can't kind of attend to it because the apples swell a little bit. So if you do leave it while you're at work or out of the house, make sure you don't just fill your crock pot up like how I did. Mine was like to the top and it was like swelling. I thought maybe the top would kind of pop off. But just do a little less if you're going to do that. And then you can put whatever spices and stuff. I did a cinnamon. I did like loose cinnamon, and then I also did cinnamon sticks, a little bit of nutmeg, and a little dash of sugar. I think that's all that I did in mine. And I don't even know if it tastes good yet because I haven't even tried it. But these could be made from your apple harvest or anything like that. And while wine, spiced with cloves, cinnamon, and nutmeg also provide that warmth for the colder nights. And then you can enjoy mulled wine or just any type of wine, I think, during these festivities. Whenever I think of wine during like a feast like this, I think of a sweet wine, like in a good hearty mug, and you're shoving your face full of like meat and potatoes and all the really good foods, and then you drink the wine and it just goes down smooth. That's what I think about. Or another one of my favorite drinks is mead. Mead is very good, and it's an ancient drink made from fermented honey. And so mead is often associated with Celtic festivals and celebrations. Now, again, go back to me holding my stout mug, drinking down and like having it like pour out the sides of my mouth. That is how, like, while I drink it, that is to me a hearty meal. So you can obviously drink the mead, but you can offer a glass of mead during your ritual as an offering or share it as part of the festival like festivities. But I do like the offering part because if I enjoy mead that much, then maybe the people I'm offering it to or the beings, entities, whatever it may be that I'm offering it to would enjoy it just as much. So another thing that I really kind of wanted to talk about Samhain are the colors. So the colors that are associated with Samhain reflect the themes of the festival. So you have death and rebirth, you have the final harvest, and the coming of darkness. But you also have the thinning of the veil between worlds. Each color holds kind of like a symbolic meaning and connection to nature's transformation, spiritual practices, and ancient traditions. So I kind of wanted to break it down into a couple of the colors. So number one is black, which obviously symbolizes death, mystery, the unknown, and the spirit world. So black is the color most strongly associated with Samhain because it represents the death of the old year and the onset of winter. It also represents the thinning of the veil between the living and the dead. It embodies the darkness of the season and the mysteries of the afterlife and spirit world. Black is often worn or used in rituals to connect with ancient energies to symbolize, protection and from malevolent spirits. So, yeah, your black can be used in your candles, your altar cloth, your attire. I don't think we've ever really talked about the clothes that we wear during rituals, but it can affect, and if you want it to affect and have intent towards your ritual. It's also a color of introspection and shadow work. So it's perfect for the deeper inner reflection that kind of comes with the darker part of the year. The second color is orange. So the harvest with the fire and the warmth and the autumn leaves and the sun's dying light is all orange. So the orange represents the final harvest and the bounty of the earth. It is the color of pumpkins, of the autumn leaves, of the sun, and it kind of showcases the days growing shorter. Orange symbolizes that warmth and life still present during this time. It's during the winter's chilly, like weather, and it's when it fully sets in. It also carries an association with fire, representing both protection and the light needed to guide spirits during the liminal time. You can use this by decorating your space with pumpkins, orange candles, autumn leaves, or bring the energy of the harvest into your like Samhain celebrations with maybe orange balances or anything like that because orange kind of balances the darker energy of the black with the warmth that it provides. Red is the next one. Red, which symbolizes a life force, blood, vitality, transformation, and passion. Red, like orange, represents the burst of energy before the earth has fallen into the dormancy of winter. It symbolizes the life force of the harvest, the blood of the animals that were slaughtered for the winter provisions, and the fire's heat. Red also reflects the transformation aspect of Samhain, where life transitions to death, and it holds passion and energy as we honor the life cycles. You can use it by using red candles or red altar decorations to represent that life energy and transformation that Samhain embodies. Red also symbolizes the connection of ancestors through bloodlines and making it a powerful color for rituals focused on honoring those who have passed. Purple. Purple symbolizes spirituality, magic, the other realm, psychic awareness, and mystery. Purple is that mystical color that represents the spiritual and magical aspect of Samhain. It can bring about and be associated with psychic awareness, intuition, and connecting with the unseen world. As is a time that you have the veil between worlds, is where it's thin, and people enhance the energies of divination, spirit communication, and magical workings. You can use this color by having a purple candle. You can use altar decorations, clothing, and anything like that to kind of work with your divination and spirit communication. It's also a great color to use during meditative practices or rituals aimed at enhancing psychic abilities. Then you have white. White, I feel like, is universal. It can go for anything. So it can symbolize purity, protection, peace, spirits, and the ancestors. While symbolizing the purity of spirits and the presence of the dead, it is often used to honor your departed loved ones, representing the light and peace that can be found beyond the veil. White also embodies the protection and cleansing, like offering the safety from harmful entities during this time. You can use it by using white candles, cloths, or anything like that. White flowers or stones can also serve as offerings and for the spirits and symbols of connection to the other world. Then you have brown, which is symbolizes the earth, stability, grounding, and the physical world. Brown represents the earth and its connection to stability. This means the material world. So, as Samhain marks the end of the harvest and the return of the earth to a dormant state, brown reflects the cycle of life, death, and rebirth in nature. It also serves as a reminder of the grounding energy that we need to prepare for the months ahead. Now, you can incorporate brown into your altar, and I will say brown, the altar table that I usually use is brown itself. So that could also, the color of your altar itself could also be something like this. But you can use it in your altar using natural elements like stones, branches, or leaves. And it's also an excellent color for grounding work as well, so helping you stay connected to the earth's energies during this time. And last but not least, we have gold. So the gold symbolizes the sun, abundance, prosperity, strength, and the final harvest. It kind of has the representation of the sun's remaining strength before the winter darkness takes over. And its color is kind of associated with abundance, prosperity, and the richness of the harvest. Gold also reflects the value of what has been gathered during the year, both in terms of the physical harvest and personal achievements. So use gold accents in your Samhain altar or wear gold jewelry, something like that, to kind of celebrate richness of the harvest and the strength gained throughout the year. Now, I do like you can combine the colors too. You don't just have to have only orange on your altar or only, etc. So you can combine black and orange to represent the balance of death and life. You can use purple and white to emphasize the spiritual connection of the other world and ancestors. You can use red and brown to honor the earth and life force. The combinations go on. I really like the idea of like combining all of the colors and everything. So now I want to talk a little bit about the crystals for this time. So I'm going to give a couple. So some of the crystals play an important role in Samhain, and they can be used to enhance our spiritual work, our protection, our divination, and maybe enhance the connection with the spirit world. And so the first one is obsidian. So I love obsidian. I don't have any personally, but I think it's so beautiful. So obsidian is used for protection, grounding, spirit, shadow work, and transformation. It is a powerful protective stone that shields against negative energy and psychic attack. It's perfect for Samhain because it helps you ground yourself during spiritual work and explore deeper, darker aspects of the self. Samhain is the time for that reflecting, so I would probably put obsidian somewhere in your altar or use it in your ritual work as a great tool for that shadow work, for examining parts of yourself of transformation and healing. Another crystal is amethyst. Now, River would be here going, "Yep, amethyst." But the symbolism is the psychic protection, spiritual connection, intuition, and calming energy. Amethyst is strongly associated with the enhancing psychic abilities and spiritual awareness. So, since Samhain is a time for divination and communicating with spirits, it can kind of aid to opening your third eye and strengthen your intuition. It can also provide that protection during your spiritual work as well. You can use it during your meditation, rituals, divination rituals like tarot or scrying. Um, just keep it on your altar too. The next one is carnelian, which is symbolizes vitality, courage, strength, and ancestral connection. So, carnelian is a stone of energy and vitality linked to the life force and physical strength. During Samhain, it can help you connect to your ancestors and honor their courage and strength. So, you can place a carnelian on your altar to honor your ancestors or to carry it with you to enhance courage and inner strength during your rituals. The next one is a labradorite. And so this one just symbolizes magic in general, intuition, psychic protection, and spiritual communication. Labradorite is a like a mystical stone known for enhancing intuition, psychic abilities, and spiritual awareness. It is often called the stone of magic and is perfect for Samhain to help you connect with the spirit world. Maybe I need one of these to connect to my magic a little bit more. You can use it in rituals that are focused on divination, spirit communication, or enhancing your magical abilities. You can place it on your third eye too to kind of deepen that meditative state that you're wanting to get into, if that's also something you want to do. Another one is moonstone. So moonstone is has symbolism for intuition, cycles, new beginnings, and psychic abilities. Moonstone is associated with the cycles of the moon, duh, and making it a great crystal for ritual ties and the themes of death and rebirth. It enhances intuition and helps you connect with the rhythms of nature and your own inner cycles. It's also linked to divine femininity and offers a nurturing, protective energy during the season. Keep moonstone on your altar to symbolize the cycles of life and death, or use it in rituals that focus on personal transformation and new beginnings. It's also great for dream work and enhancing intuitive ability during Samhain season. Now, I have a couple more, but I'm just gonna say like maybe two more because really all of these crystals, it's what kind of sparks joy in you and what you feel like you need for your season and what you feel like you need in your practice. These are just kind of like what they stand for and what you can use. Um, if you want to use these, great. If you don't, also great. So another one is jet. So jet is used for protection, ancestral connection, and purification. It has long been associated with mourning and protection, making it powerful stone for honoring your ancestors during Samhain. It absorbs negative energy and can help purify the space during spirit work. It also strengthens your connection to the dead and helps guide you through the spiritual transformation of Samhain that Samhain represents. So keep jet on your altar. You can put it in your jewelry. You can like there's so many things you can do with it. I'm just gonna like rattle them off. I could just talk about that for hours. Yeah. But um I mean the possibilities are endless with when it comes to using this type of stuff in your practice. And so next I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about like other symbols. So we've talked about the colors and we've talked about crystals that you can use, but what are some other symbols that you can use during this time? And I know I've already kind of talked about the first one, but I think I'll reiterate and maybe it has like maybe a little bit different meaning than what I talked about before. You can use pumpkins and or jack-o'-lanterns. And so these would symbolize protection, light, and the harvest. So the pumpkins And by extension, jack-o'-lanterns are one of the most recognizable symbols for Samhain and Halloween. Originally, people used the turnips and the gourds, like we were talking about, but pumpkins later became a symbol as well. So maybe just interchangeably it can be turnips and pumpkins and gourds and all of that. So carve a jack-o'-lantern to protect your home and invite the warmth of the season, or use pumpkins to represent abundance and the final harvest. Another one is a cauldron, which we've talked about the cauldron before, but we haven't kind of really brought it up as often as I wish we could have, I guess. I mean, it's in our name, but this can symbolize transformation, rebirth, and the womb of the goddess. So the cauldron is a central symbol in Celtic and Wiccan traditions. So this kind of represents the womb of the goddess, which from all of the life emerges and which all life returns. It's also connected to the concept of death and rebirth, as it is seen as a vessel of transformation. And during Samhain, the cauldron is often used in rituals related with themes of death, renewal, and change. You can incorporate it into your rituals by, using it to cook in. You can use it for meditation. You can use it to do like a little warm, like what's the word I'm thinking of, like a boil to like make your house smell really good. I can't think of the name of it right now, but one of those. I mean, there's so many things. You can use it to put fire in for your rituals. Like there's so many things you could do. And other symbols are skulls and bones. So the symbolism is death, the ancestors, and the afterlife. Skulls and bones are potent symbols of mortality and the cycle of life and death. They remind us of the ancestors and the importance of connecting with those who have passed on. So during Samhain, it's pretty, it's used for honoring the dead and to acknowledge the inevitability, I can never say that word right, inevitability of death as part of the natural cycle. And so you can use skull or bone imagery and decorations. You can use physical, like bones in your practice, however it is. And then another symbol is the scythe. So at the end of the harvest, death, and the grim reaper. So the scythe is traditionally associated with the harvest to cut down the crops at the end of the season. And metaphorically, it represents death, cutting down life at the point, like a point in time, and is often linked with the figure, the grim reaper. So at Samhain, the scythe symbolizes the end of the yearly cycle and the cutting away of what is no longer needed. So it could be both in the physical and spiritual realms. So while not often physically used, the scythe can be visualized in rituals as a symbol of release and transformation, helping to cut away the old and prepare for the new growth. Another symbol is bats. So you can use bats for rebirth, intuition, and communication with the spirit world. Bats are nocturnal creatures, which are often associated with mystery, intuition, and the spirit world. Because they navigate the dark, bats are symbols of trusting the unseen and connected to the thinning of worlds. So they can be used symbolically during Samhain as guides through the darkness and kind of remind you of the trust and the intuition of the mysteries of your life. Another one is the crows or ravens, which I think we've talked about crows and ravens before in one of our normal episodes, where crows or ravens can kind of have that prophecy or death and magic. Crows and ravens, they're closely linked to Samhain and are often seen as messengers between the worlds of the living and the dead. In Celtic mythology, the Morrigan, a goddess associated with fate, death, and war, often takes the form of a crow or a raven. These birds are also connected with prophecy and the magical workings, making them symbols of spiritual insight and transformation. So you can invoke the energy of crows or ravens in your rituals for guidance, prophecy, or to call on the wisdom of the ancestors. The veil is also a really big symbol. So it's that boundary between the living and the dead and the unseen worlds. So during Samhain, the veil between the physical world and the spiritual world is believed to be the thinnest. I kind of think of it as like this wispy type of webby thing. I don't know about you, but the veil is, I don't know. but the veil represents that boundary. And so, both in its literal sense and in the division between life and death, it's has like a metaphorical sense as well as the unseen aspects of the universe. So you can incorporate this into your practice, into divination, meditation, and to kind of connect to ancestors. I did a little um, like meditation on Patreon of the thinning of the veil. So I think that would be kind of cool if you want to go check that out too. And then, let's say last but not least, because there's so many types of symbols that we could use. But last but not least, maybe I'll do one more, is the witch themselves. So magic, transformation, feminine power, the connection between worlds. Like the witch is a potent symbol of Samhain, representing the connection to magic, transformation, and all other spiritual powers that are the strongest at the time of the year. Witches are seen as individuals who navigate the boundary between the physical and spiritual realms, and using their knowledge and abilities to communicate with spirits, perform divination, and cast spells. You can use and embrace the witch archetype in your own practice, whether through spell work, divination, and or rituals that kind of honor transformation of the wisdom and natural, like nat nature states of the spiritual worlds. Now, I will say that was a lot of information to just kind of dump on you guys, but that's all that I have. I know I have a little bit more, but I also want you guys to go out and kind of learn a little bit and understand what your practice means to you, not just kind of taking, yeah, that's what River and Rin said, so I'm gonna have to do it. I want you guys to go in about and say, yeah, like maybe I should use spider webs in my practice, or apples or candles and bonfires because I want to, and or I thought the information was so cool that they were saying, and I kind of resonate with that. So I really hope that everybody has a fantastic Samhain season, a great October, and we'll see you next time in this season and our for our last episode in this series, I guess I should say, for Yule. That will be exciting, but I guess that's all that I have. Have a great season, and until then, stay witchy.